On Crete, archaeologists pulled clay tablets from the ruins of Bronze Age palaces, tablets everyone assumed held a language related to the island's own Minoan writing, Linear A. That assumption made sense. The signs looked similar. But when the script was finally read, sign by sign, it did not turn out to be some undiscovered Minoan tongue. It was Greek. Not just Greek, but the earliest written Greek known to exist, recorded on clay centuries before the Greek alphabet was ever used. A script found on an island tied to a pre-Greek civilization turned out to be proof that Greek speakers were writing far earlier than historians had assumed. That single result reordered the timeline of Greek literacy itself. The tablets came from major Mycenaean sites: Knossos on Crete, Cydonia, Pylos, Thebes, and Mycenae on the mainland. The script used to write them is called Linear B, and it is a syllabic system, meaning each sign generally stands for a syllable rather than a single letter. It descended from Linear A, the older script used by the Minoans of Crete from roughly 1800 to 1450 BC, primarily for palace and religious writing. When Linear B first surfaced, the working assumption was that it likely recorded the same kind of language as its ancestor, an unknown, non-Greek tongue tied to Minoan civilization. Proving that assumption wrong and proving what the script actually said took decades. Before anyone could translate a single word, they had to contend with what the script actually was, and it was not built for easy reading. Linear B consists of around 87 syllabic signs, plus more than 100 additional ideographic signs. Those ideograms are not words and carry no phonetic value at all. They function only as labels for objects or commodities, marking what a tablet is counting, not how to pronounce anything. That meant scholars could not simply sound out the syllabic signs and expect fluent sentences. They had to separate two overlapping systems, a syllabary for sound and a set of silent accounting symbols, before the underlying language could even be guessed at. Nobody knew, going in, what language would emerge once the syllables were sounded out. That uncertainty was the real obstacle, not just unfamiliar symbols. For decades, Linear B sat in the same unread category as its parent script. Linear A, rediscovered in its modern context in 1900, has never been deciphered, despite more than a century of attempts. Its case matters here because it shows how difficult these Aegean scripts are, even when signs are visible and countable. Linear B did not escape that same fate by luck. It escaped it because of a specific body of research that laid the groundwork others could build on. American classicist Alice Kober spent years analyzing the patterns within Linear B's signs, work that later scholars would treat as the essential foundation for solving the script. Her research did not itself produce a translation, but it established the internal structure the eventual decipherer would need. The person who took that structure and turned it into an actual language was not a professional linguist or archaeologist at all. Michael Ventris was an English architect, self-taught in linguistics, working outside any academic decipherment establishment. In 1952, building on Kober's research, Ventris deciphered Linear B. The language behind the signs turned out to be Mycenaean Greek, the earliest attested form of the Greek language. That finding reshaped assumptions in two directions at once. It meant Mycenaean Greeks, on the mainland and at Knossos on Crete, were literate in a syllabic script centuries before the familiar Greek alphabet existed. And it meant Linear A, the script Linear B had visibly evolved from, was very likely not recording Greek at all, since its readable descendant so clearly was. Understanding what the signs meant mechanically is different from understanding what the tablets were for, and that second question is where the discovery's real weight sits. Once scholars could read the tablets, it became clear Linear B was not used for literature, correspondence, or history. Its application appears to have been confined almost entirely to administrative record-keeping inside Mycenaean palaces. The handwriting across thousands of tablets reveals a surprisingly small workforce behind all of it. A relatively small number of scribes, 45 identified at Pylos on the Peloponnese, and 66 at Knossos on Crete. Writing, in this world, was not a broad cultural practice. It was a narrow administrative tool, controlled by a small trained class working inside the palace bureaucracy. Signs did appear more widely on trade objects like amphorae, but the full script stayed tied to institutional record-keeping. That narrowness had consequences once the institutions that relied on it collapsed. Linear B disappeared along with the Mycenaean palaces during the late Bronze Age collapse. The tablets we can now read only exist because they were baked hard in the fires that destroyed the buildings holding them. An accident of destruction, preserving the evidence of a bureaucracy that vanished with its palaces. The period that followed, known as the Greek Dark Ages, provides no conclusive evidence of writing being used at all. A script confined to a small administrative class, once that class and its palaces were gone, left nothing behind to carry writing forward. Literacy in the Aegean effectively restarted later, with a different script entirely. Linear B's decipherment is not the norm for scripts like it, and that context matters for how confident we should be about claims involving related writing systems. Linear A remains unread today. It shares many signs with Linear B, and those shared syllabic signs are thought to carry similar sound values. But no proposed reading has produced a language scholars can actually understand. Cypro-Minoan and Cretan hieroglyphic, the other two branches of this same script family, remain unreadable as well. A separate case outside the Aegean shows how contested even a claimed decipherment can be. Linear Elamite, used in Elam during the Bronze Age between roughly 2300 and 1850 BCE, saw limited progress from early 20th century researchers, then further work by later scholars. Starting in 2018, French archaeologist François Dessay and colleagues proposed a near-complete decipherment, published in 2022. Dessay has argued the script is the oldest known purely phonographic writing system, while linguist Michael Ventris has argued it is instead partly logographic. The 2022 claim was received positively by some researchers and met with skepticism by others, who are withholding judgment until detailed translations are published. Even a proposed decipherment does not settle a script status on its own. So where does that leave the picture today? Linear B stands as the only Bronze Age Aegean script that has actually been deciphered. Linear A, Cypro-Minoan, and Cretan hieroglyphic remain closed, despite sharing visual and structural DNA with a script we can read fluently. That gap is not a matter of missing effort. It is a reminder that recognizing signs is not the same as recognizing language, and that decipherment depends on more than pattern recognition alone. It requires a plausible guess about which language sits underneath the signs, a structural analysis solid enough to test that guess, and enough surviving text to confirm the result holds up sentence after sentence. Linear B had all three, eventually, through Kober's structural groundwork and Ventris's linguistic leap. Linear A, so far, has had none of them align at once. What the Linear B case actually proves is narrower than it sometimes gets credited for. It proves that a bureaucratic accounting script, confined to a small class of palace scribes, can preserve enough internal structure to reveal an entire unexpected language, if the right combination of analysis and insight meets it. It does not prove that every undeciphered script is solvable, or that shared signs guarantee a shared answer. Linear A sits right next to that success, sharing its signs, and still says nothing. The tablets that finally spoke did so because the system behind them was cracked open piece by piece, not guessed at whole. That is the actual lesson sitting inside this discovery, and it is exactly the question worth carrying into why Linear A, so closely related, still refuses to answer back. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.